What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I hope everybody is doing well today. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I bring to you a highly recommended topic. And I'm surprised because we actually reviewed this before, but I guess we actually, considering we didn't dig, deep into this topic, I can see why it was highly recommended and why the comment had so many likes. Thank you so much for this recommendation. You know exactly who you are. And let's dig right into this, man. Everybody feel free to follow my Twitch in the description down below. Today we'll be reacting to and reviewing the Halifax Explosion. Let's go ahead and read this quick, description, and then I have another article I would like to read, and then I have a video, we could check out. I think it's actually, what is it, 1 or 2 videos today? I think it's like 1 or 2 videos or 1 or 2 articles. It's one or the other, but just go ahead, kick back, relax, get your drinks, your snacks, your popcorn, because we about to get into this. Train dispatcher Vince Coleman sacrifices his own life to save a train from the Halifax Explosion. This is actually the other article. This is the video right here. The Halifax Explosion, it was devastated December 6th, 1917, when two ships collided in the city's harbor. One of them, a munition ship loaded with explosives bound for battlefields of the First World War. What followed was one of the largest human-made explosions prior to the... Can I just like make this a little bigger, guys? Because I feel like I need to... Can I move this out the way? Ah, there we go. That's beautiful. There we go. I'm reading all slow. I can't really see much. Where did we leave off at? It's like I hate trying to, figure out the last place you left off. So it says largest human-made explosions prior to the detonation of the first atomic bombs in 1945. The north end of Halifax was wiped out by the blast and subsequent tsunami. Nearly 2,000 people died. Another 9,000 maimed or blinded. What is it? Is that mimed or maimed? That's my first time ever seeing that word. Is that mimed or maimed?
Maimed.
Wait.
Maimed.
Okay. Maimed or blinded. And more than 25,000 were left without adequate shelter. I know, because people's houses were blown up. They were on fire or damaged or too close to the hazard. And the fumes and everything. It was bad, man. It was just, horrible. Halifax was a busy wartime port city in 1917. First World War had been underway for 3 years, exposing Canadian servicemen to injury, death, and hardship, but bringing prosperity to Halifax. After decades of hard economic times, the city was a hub of Canada's war effort, with one of the finest and deepest ice-free harbors in North America. Halifax was the port, though, which tens of thousands of Canadian, British Empire, and American troops passed on their way to the battlefields of Europe or on their way home. The city's population of nearly 50,000, not a lot of people at all, man. 50,000, everybody knows everybody, man. 50,000 was swollen by the influx of troops and by Canadian and British naval officials supervising activity in the port. Oh, wait, I didn't know the British naval... Wait a minute. Okay. I didn't know they actually had millions of tons of supplies also passed through the port. Supplies and goods, Supplies and goods route to the war, such as wheat, lumber, coal, food, munitions, and armaments, arriving by rail and departing on ships. The harbor was not only home to Canada's fledgling Royal Canadian Navy, but was also a base for Royal Navy vessels and merchant ships from around the world needing repair or resupply. That's a big ship, man. Was it actually... No, it wasn't painted like that, though, right? If this is like a true painting of how it actually looked at the dock or at the port, then that's pretty cool. That's a nice looking ship, honestly. Oh, this is a painting, a 1919 painting by a Canadian war artist. What's his name? Arthur Lismer. So, of course, all this activity boosted Canada's economy, made jobs plentiful, and gave the small city a buzz its residents had not experienced in decades. Civilian migrants arrived in search of available work at the dockyards, rail yards, and the sugar refinery and other factories. I'm telling y'all, man, even now, today's time, you could get a factory job coming out of high school. If you don't want to go to college or trade school, Go get a factory job, man. You're off on all holidays, paid too. You're gonna get, your weekends off. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna work your behind off, but hey, you're gonna be fine, man. Women also took up paid jobs and once filled by men. Women also took up paid jobs once filled by men who were now away at war. Of course, because when soldiers, the men, which are now soldiers who had to go off to war, the women had to take over, in factories, man. They had to go up in them factories and take over the men's spot. Stuff still has to get done, especially for these women. So instead of the role of them staying home, taking care of the kids and the family and everything, man, you're in this factory and you're working day and night. Your man is out there fighting and you're fighting for your country as well, working in the factories. You think they wanted to go to war? Some of them did, but it's scary. It's a scary situation. People rather just live their life, go to the factory, go to work, go see their family, their wife, and their kids. Come on now, not ask for war, not have to leave, drop everything and go to war and leave them now. Come on now. Let's be realistic. You think the women want to go work in the factories? They used to home. This is not for them, but nobody complained. They did their role. You gotta do what you gotta do now. You gotta do what you gotta do. Soldiers and sailors filled the streets despite the war's horrors in Europe. It created wealth and opportunity for many in Halifax. It also boosted demand for bootleg liquor and prostitution, upsetting the Victorian era morals and sensibilities many Haligonians, that's my first time hearing that word, okay, still harbored. Much of Halifax industrial activity was centered in the working class neighborhood of Richmond in Halifax North End, a tightly knit community of wooden homes, schools, and churches. Like I said, all together, everybody knows everybody, probably. Unpaved streets crisscross the slopes of Richmond, leading down to the harbor where factories, naval piers, and sprawling dry dock and railway yards bustled with activity. Further north of Richmond was the black community of Africville. Across the harbor on the more sparsely populated Dartmouth shore was the longtime Micmac village of Turtle Grove. The video in the little in this right here, it doesn't include all this information. So this is stuff that I actually didn't know about before, Probably should have educated myself when the day we reacted to it, but it was a series of Heritage Minute videos. It was 3 of them, so we didn't really get the chance to because the video would have been long, very long. So I'm very thankful for this recommendation. Thank you so much, guys, because I actually didn't know about this. I'm thinking I knew everything for the video and this and that, and I'm like, I suppose we could dig a little deeper because we didn't do that last video. So now we got the collision, man. Did I say IMO? Or IMO? The IMO was departing the harbor on the morning of December 6, 1917. It had emerged from Bedford Basin. It was traveling south through the Narrows, the harbor's tightest navigation section, moving on the eastern Dartmouth side of the channel instead of the Halifax side to the west. For a second, I thought that said Chanel. So channel, okay. Where outgoing vessels normally traveled, IMO's path required incoming ships to pass to its right or starboard side, rather than to its left or port side, which was customary. IMO had an experienced local harbor pilot on board, William Hayes, who knew the navigation routes of the harbor. However, earlier encounters that morning with 2 inbound vessels moving toward Bedford Basin, both of which IMO had passed starboard to starboard, resulted in the unusual position that IMO now occupied, too far to the east, on the wrong side of the Narrows. The Mont Blanc had arrived outside Halifax the previous day and anchored overnight at the mouth of the harbor. On the morning of December 6th, the ship was cleared by harbor authorities to proceed toward Bedford Basin. Despite the Mont Blanc's dangerous cargo, there was no special protocol for this passage of munition ships in the harbor. Other ships, such as the IMO, were not ordered to hold their positions that morning until the Mont Blanc. Is it Mount Blanc or Mount Blanc? Had made safe passage through the port. Francis Mackey, Mont Blanc's pilot, was guiding the ships inbound on the Dartmouth side of the Narrows when he encountered the IMO heading straight towards him in what he believed was Mont Blanc's lane. Mackey would later maintain that IMO was moving at an unsafe speed for such a large, unwieldy ship in the harbor, and also that incoming ships, in this case Mont Blanc, had the right of way of over outgoing vessels. Regardless of the accuracy of those claims, what is certain is that the IMO was sailing too far to the east, in what should have been Mount Blank's path. Yeah, that is true. It's kind of in the way, man. Oh my goodness. After a series of whistles and miscommunications between the officers and pilots on the two ships and failed maneuvers to avoid a collision, the IMO struck the starboard bow of the Mount Blank. After a few moments, the two ships parted, leaving a gash in a Mount Blank's hull and generating sparks that initiated violet grains of dry piersic. Volatile grains of dry picric acid stored below its decks. For nearly 20 minutes, the Mount Blank burned. The fire encompassed burning drums of benzo, a form of gasoline, on the ship's top deck, sending a huge plume of black smoke to the sky. The spectacle attracted the attention of people on shore. Of course, black smoke, including children on their way to school, and drew many residents to their windows and others towards the ships itself. In the harbor, teams of firefighters and sailors from other ships headed towards Mount Blank, hoping to put out its fire. Few understood the danger except for a handful of harbor and naval officials, as well as Francis Mackey and the French-speaking crew of the Mount Blank, who fled the ship after the fire broke out, rowing desperately in lifeboats for the Dartmouth side of the harbor. As they did so, the crippled and burning Mount Blank drifted toward Pier 6 on the Halifax shore, a busy area filled with residential homes, businesses, moored ships, and the Royal Naval College of Canada, and a large sugar refinery. Vincent Coleman, at the nearby railway yard, two men learned of ship's content and danger of explosions. Chief Clerk William Lovett told people in the yards about the Mount Blank's deadly cargo and called an agent further up the line to warn him of the danger. And this is what happens in the video, man. And it's a stressful situation. Imagine if they wasn't picking up and there was miscommunication and you wasn't able to even reach them. It's horrible, man. Vincent Coleman, a railway dispatcher, controlled the busy freight and passenger rail traffic coming and going from Halifax, Peninsula. Vincent Coleman, a railway dispatcher, controlled the busy freight and passenger rail traffic coming and going from the Halifax Peninsula. He was about to flee his office when he realized that trains were due to arrive, including at 8:55 a.m. train from St. John, New Brunswick, with hundreds of passengers on board. As the Mount Blank burned and the minutes tickled by, Coleman stayed at his post, tapping out a message on his telegraph key, warning stations up the line to stop any trains from entering Halifax. Munition ship on fire, making for Pier 6 goodbye. Coleman and Lovett were both killed in the explosion. Do you know how depressing that is? Saved people's lives and he died. They lost their lives and they kept saying, come on, we gotta go. We gotta go. His friend said, look, we do gotta leave, but you know, they did have to help the people. And they could have been got out of there with the other people they kept telling to leave. You know, everybody gather together and leave, move far away. And, you know, he stayed back. And that's really sad, man. That's really depressing. And that's really a sad ending. Never a happy ending. Let's go ahead and check this video out, man.
My God, look at that.
Yeah, thank God she's a half a mile away, huh?
She's loaded, boys. You gotta get out of here. It's full of...
Thank God she's a half a mile away, and it's still close. I don't think he was aware of how close it actually was. Yes, it's, you know, it's a half a mile away, but it's dangerous. That explosion could travel to where you're at. It could reach the distance you are at. I mean, I don't understand why he thought everything was fine.
My God, look at that.
Yeah, thank God she's a half a mile away, huh?
She's loaded, boys. You gotta get out of here. It's full of explosives.
Children, come on.
Oh, no. No, get out of here.
Vince!
Going back in the school.
Please, get these children out of here. That ship is gonna blow. No!
Mr. Coleman.
See, once he heard explosives, he was like, whoa. Yeah, he knew, like, okay, it could reach. It could definitely reach where we're at. Explosives is something different. You know what the explosives could, they are meant to blow up your whole state, your whole country. They're meant to blow up and do damage. Mess up your country. They don't, bombs, explosives, nah, don't play no games with those.
Going back in the school.
Please, get these children out of here. That ship is gonna blow. No!
Mr. Coleman.
Hurry! Hurry! You gotta get these people out of here. That ship is gonna blow. The train. What? People, get out of here. It's gonna blow up.
Munition ship on fire. Stop train. Please, God, answer.
Coleman, there's no time.
The train's coming in towards Pier 6. I've got to warn you.
Come on, Vince, come on.
There are 700 people aboard it. I've got to stop it. Come on, acknowledge.
Halifax was devastated. 9,000 wounded, 2,000 dead, including Vince Coleman, dispatched.
You know, I watched this before too, you know, when we was checking out the Heritage Mini videos, and it's just, you know, it really hits deeper a second time, especially when digging deep into the history behind it and, you know, what really happened behind this situation and, you know, how this happened to begin with. And then, like, just hearing how he stayed back and he wanted to help everybody, you know, try to save everybody's life and refused. You know, it was successful. It worked. They acknowledged, but it was already too late. He could have been gotten out of there, but he decided no. Think of how many lives he saved, because there could have been way more trains on their way that was on their way to continue so they could reach the Halifax as well. They would have went right into the collision. Of course, you know, they wouldn't have been in the explosion, but they would have arrived at a destination. Matter of fact, there wouldn't have been any tracks or any that would have caused accidents as well, and it would have been detrimental, man. Oh my goodness. So now we are actually going to check out this video. I believe it's an interview of some of the survivors from the Halifax explosion. You know, people that we try not to forget, which we will never forget. And, you know, this is an interview of people that will never forget it either, man. They've lost loved ones as well at young ages as kids as well. And that, you know, that's traumatizing. It's traumatizing. Nothing can scar you, you know. After something like that happening to you, nothing in life can pretty much really scar you or poke you as much or hurt you as much as that. Like, that is, like, unfair at the same time, you know, for something like that to just outburst and happen because of somebody else's mistake, because of something else that, you know, that went wrong.
Looking out the window at the fire down in the harbor, and in an instant, everything exploded, right? The window came in on my father. He was looking directly out, so all the glass came in on his face and his upper body. The house collapsed, and my grandmother and aunt were scalded, and my grandmother had lacerations on her arm. The doctors looked at him and determined that his eyes couldn't be saved, and both of his eyes were removed. In an instant, a little baby, you know, little happy-go-lucky little baby, and now he's without sight. And it devastated his parents, as you can imagine.
Well, I say my mother saved me. That's all I can say.
That's sad, man.
He worked for Cruikshank's funeral home. He went around with a horse and wagon for Cruikshank, picking up the dead bodies. People tried to forget it. No, they tried to forget it. You don't carry them things around. I never carried that stuff around.
Many of them said that their mothers would never speak of it, because many of the fathers had been killed. You know, they were working in Richmond, and along the shoreline, along the harbour in Richmond, were the various works, the sugar refinery, the foundry, etc. And they were all very badly damaged. And so many of them had very vivid personal stories, and I don't think the mothers could ever have spoken like that. For a mother who lost perhaps husband and 2 children, terrible.
My brothers and I, you know, knew our father was blinded in the Halifax explosion, but it wasn't a topic for discussion on a regular basis, and my grandmother wouldn't talk about it. People didn't want to dwell on those things.
Crazy, like
in 1918, on the 1-year anniversary, there was a service, and then there wasn't anything else until 1967. For over 50 years, there was no commemoration of the Halifax explosion.
They have little ceremonies at the little memorials to the unidentified dead, but there were no main ceremonies.
It is a big part of our history here in the city, and you look at other places and they, I guess, documented their history, commemorated it a little better maybe than we did here. I'm so glad that we're doing it now.
Well, You know, it was probably because they wanted to forget about it as well. It was like, it hurts too much. It really does hurt. But yes, we should commemorate it always. You know, never forget about this event that happened in previous times in history. This is really sad. I didn't know people walked off, you know, they survived, but they were blinded for the rest of their life. That sucks. Wounded, you're injured, crippled for the rest of your life. Some people didn't even make it that worked on the shoreline in the factories and the refinery. Like that sucks. You even get to go back home and see your family. Maybe your wife and kids got away, but not you. Like that's. Can you imagine it's just a normal day early in the morning? You just got your morning started. Kids going to school and everything. People going off to work. You just got to work. Early in the day, you just got your morning started. And this is what happens. I enjoyed reviewing this topic today. Digging deep and doing some research. You know, digging deep into the history of the Halifax explosion and learning about how this really affected, you know, homes, businesses, and people all around the world. And this is crazy. You know, it's not fair. I'm saying all around the world because there could have been travelers there, visitors. They could have been there with family. You know, they didn't have to be from that specific place. So that's why I'm trying to just include everyone, because you don't know where other people came from at that moment and why they were there. You don't know. This is sad. I really enjoy learning about this. If you guys enjoyed learning about this topic just as much as me, feel free to hit that thumbs up, turn on post notifications on, and feel free to subscribe and join the family, man, if you haven't already. Thank you so much to all my new supporters that actually joined me today to check out this wonderful topic today, learning about the Halifax explosion. Feel free to follow my Twitch in the description down below, guys. And please continue to recommend some more of these amazing videos and topics for us to react to and research on down below in the comment section and in my DMs on Instagram. Everyone stay safe. Feel free to share your honest opinions and thoughts on the Halifax explosion down below in the comment section as well. And please, if you feel comfortable, share some stories, you know, some personal stories if you happen to know anybody, you know, that may have been affected from this explosion, or if you happen to be there yourself. Thank you so much for tuning into the video today and just learning with me and exploring more about the Halifax explosion.